and welcome to RCDroneQuest, where we talk about tech, drones, general flying information, and just things you need to know before you take to the sky. RCDroneQuest. And welcome. I'm Jeff Zayas from Napa, California, and
Dustin Myers from sunny South Florida.
Dwayne Myers from now finally sunny Pennsylvania.
yay. Episode number 3, guys. Episode number 3.
We've made it.
We've been on a hiatus lately.
A little bit, yeah, weather and what have you. Busy life.
Definitely. So why don't we all just kind of go through what we've been doing, and then we'll start the show.
Sounds good. So, yeah, like we kind of normally do, start out with talking about kind of what we flew. So my latest flights were actually to shoot a wedding and for pay. So we're going to actually, later on in the show, we're going to talk a little bit about that and a little FAA regulation and all that good stuff. So Part 107, if you're familiar with what that means, we'll leave that at that for now. So, yeah, the Mavic at the time had firmware 5.50 on it, and actually 600 or 600 just came out. So I did the upgrade today. Haven't flown it since yet. But with 5.50, I tell you, it has been stable as all get out. Even with, so I had roughly 20-mile-per-hour winds. I did check the winds before I flew. Knew that was kind of borderline on the edge. And then knowing the gust, I was going to carry it up a little bit over that. And even putting it in tripod mode to get some slow pans and some nice movements, cinematic movements. I tell you, that thing just held in. You could see a little bit of drifting at times in the film when the gust hit it, and you just sit there and wait, for the gust to go through. But I tell you, it worked like a champion. Certainly did not get in the way of being able to, to capture and create what we were trying to get for the moment.
Cool.
So yeah.
Did you get a lot of questions from people at the wedding about it?
It was actually interesting. A lot of people pointed and stared and, kind of were excited about it. The father of the bride, he had a couple nice things to say, but, he was mentioning, a few things. One of the most interesting things I thought, and I thought somebody was crazy for this, but supposedly the venue said that just a week earlier, someone flew a quad inside, and it would be okay if I, wanted to fly inside over the wedding party, and the ceilings were not high, let's just say.
Yeah, inside over people sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. That's
a disaster, The Mavic is not exactly light and friendly when it whacks you in the head, because something's wrong.
That'll cut you.
Yeah, not too smart.
You'd have to buy that DJI cage,
Yeah, right. Well, actually, interestingly, and we didn't throw this in the news, but Apple and I'm trying to remember the brand name, but it's this little teeny. It looks like a little box, and
they don't fold open.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a little book, right? And all the props are completely encaged. I could see you maybe fly one of those in there, but you know how weddings are and receptions. It's dark as all get out, and I doubt the video would turn out too well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you'd have to have something like that before you even thought about it.
So for a wedding, how much video did you do?
I mean, it was limited to the outside. You would never, the props are loud still. The Mavic's actually quieter than the Phantoms. So you're not going to go during the ceremony. But what I did, a couple of different shots. So at the bride's house earlier in the day, I just got a kind of a panning shot back and forth around the side in front of her house, right? The ones, the classic cinematic shot is a reveal shot. Right. And so you can either start low and pan the lens up, right? And so I did a couple of those. Always do a couple because if one doesn't turn out, right, or the wind gusted or something, having a couple to choose from is always better. And then I rose up above the house and then just kind of panned down. So you see hit my hand above the screen, but you see the horizon and the trees in the background, all that. And then you just kind of slowly descend. Tripod mode again, worked great because you keep the stick pegged and then she's just sinking nice and evenly. And then the house just rises up into view. So then at the church, they had a party limo from the reception hall that would pick them up. And so I was outside again, and here come, party limo was across the street down the block a bit. And so I just sat there, and as it was coming in the parking lot, it just slowly panned, and it was the money shot, man. It was perfectly aligned and just rotated and brought the party, bus all the way in up to the church. And the neatest shot was the reveal shot for the church. And so I didn't know this was going to happen until I rose up above the church, above the steeple, and there was the Philadelphia skyline, absolutely dead center of the back of the steeple. So you start out with the Philadelphia skyline and then pan down into the steeple, into the front of the church, and then the name of the church was like right on top of the entrance and just came up into view. And it was perfect.
Awesome.
And then you do a couple shots over top at the reception hall, outside. And they did a heart shape, the wedding party, and the bride did a little twirl thing, for video, and you do a couple of those type of shots. There was a little garden with some fountains, and you fly those a bit,
So when you delivered the product, how many minute video did you put together?
So overall, the wedding itself was 45 minutes, and then the reception video. Not saying anything about an Italian wedding, but this was an Italian wedding in Philadelphia. So we had a part was mummers, a part was, a bunch of different types of dances, and then you have, all the normal dancing. So there was a lot of extra stuff. And that came out to be 45 minutes.
Wow.
And since we're talking DJI products, I actually have an Osmo Plus. And I tell you, that thing there is a flying gimbal in your hand.
Yeah.
And I basically meandered through the dance floor, through the reception hall, up front during the, the front end, whatever the heck they call that, right?
Yeah.
And so it felt like a drone just flying through everybody because it was just a nice, smooth, cinematic panning effect. Something you could never do with a handheld camera without a gimbal stabilization. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Very cool. Now, what's the Osmo Plus? I know what the Osmo is. What's different with the Plus?
So the Plus, the Plus adds 3x zoom, optical zoom.
Oh, cool.
And of course, for those who are going to watch this later, the Osmo is basically a hand stick with a bunch of great controls on it, and it interfaces actually to the camera that comes off the Inspire 1 and the Inspire 2 now. So they have two different, actually they have three cameras, because they actually have the Osmo Pro or something. That's like a couple grand, because again, you're paying for the camera, right?
Yeah.
And the optics on that. So all the cameras that are on the Osmo come off the Inspire series quads drone.
And they sell the handheld that you can just use your like iPhone or Android phone with it.
Yeah. The Osmo Mobile, which is a great option, and you just clip your iPhone in it, and your iPhone's the camera.
Right.
The only thing there is you got to make sure you have enough battery power, right, in your iPhone before you and storage before you start.
Yeah.
Where this records the standard micro SD like all of our quads do, drones. Yeah. I like the mobile because you get a new phone and you get a new camera, right? So it's actually a bad thing.
Cool. Dustin, what about your Florida trip?
And so the owner of the company I work for has a house in Isla Mirada, and I went down there. He asked me last year, hey, just got this place. We just painted it and did a bunch of yard work. It looks really nice. Would you mind going down there and filming it with your drone? All expense paid trip, except you got to pay for your food and your gas. Basically, you could just stay there for free. And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. So I took my wife and kids down there last year in March, and just for 2 nights. This time they painted a shed that was in the back and fixed it up and made it look nice. And he's like, I really like that video, but every time I see it, it bugs me that shed is, basically falling apart. So would you go back down there and reshoot it for me? And I was like, yeah, let me know when. He's like, yeah, pick a weekend. So, and they rent out the house to other people. People go down there to stay. So we looked at the calendar, and there was a 4-day, 3-night chunk open. So I'm like, let's do 3 nights. So that's what we did. And man, it was nice. It was very windy the whole time. And the first 2 days it rained almost the whole 2 days. So no flying then. I did have my tiny whoop, so I flew it inside the house, which was cool because it's like a 5-bedroom, 3-story house. The third day, I had like a 2-hour window in the morning where it wasn't super windy and it wasn't raining. So I flew the Inspire and got all the shots I needed to get. Later that evening, I flew the Mavic, just a quarter of a battery, if that. My wife was out on a paddleboard, and I was doing the active track and letting it like circle her while she was paddleboarding, which was working well, but I was left on shore with my kids, and I couldn't like concentrate on doing that. Yeah. So I cut that flight short, and honestly, it was too windy. It was after that, and the 4th day, the day that we left, it was back up to about 25 mile an hour sustained, gusting at 30. And this is not, so that's even, it's probably like gusting up to 33 knots or whatever, or miles per hour. So that was one job. I had a job for a Swiss skiing school outside of Orlando. I went up there. It was like a last-minute thing. They contacted me the night before. It was like 8 o'clock. Hey, can you come up tomorrow morning? And it's literally 2 shots. It'll be quick. Well, it was 2 shots, but the time in between was like 3 hours or whatever. But we got some really cool footage. They had these canisters filled with colored powder that were hooked up to compressors on shore. And as this water skier was slaloming, people on shore were pulling these things, and he was slaloming through this big, huge red cloud of powder, and it looked super awesome. We did a couple slow motion shots at 120 frames per second, and it just looks super cool. So both of those last 2 jobs were nice because I didn't have to do any video editing. It was just give them the footage, and then they do their own editing. So that was nice. But yeah, so that's what I've been flying. The DJI stuff, I've been, like I said before the show, a lot of FPV stuff, a lot of mini quads at the parks and tiny whoops. And I was at a convention center the last 2 days in West Palm, and I flew the tiny whoop inside there, which was cool. Flew it inside a couple bars. I'm trying to start a tiny whoop drone racing series in Palm Beach County and Martin County. So we'll see how that goes.
Wow.
So for the 120 frame, was that with the Inspire?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it turned out. I don't know if it'll work. I can show you a quick clip I pulled up. Let's see if I can share my screen here. You guys see that?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, sorry about that. Not trying to eat up our time here. So this was the slow motion shot. All the other shots were chasing the water skier or chasing the boat.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks. I'm looking at the preview. It looks pretty jumpy on here. It's actually not that jumpy, but yeah, it was fun.
Cool. So, were you worried about getting the dust inside the quad at all, or you think the?
Yeah. So we rehearsed a couple of the shots because they had a limited amount of the powder, and it took a long time to fill those canisters. They had to go out in the lake in a little John boat and make sure not to make any ripples in the water, or otherwise that powder would spill out or water would get inside of the canister and it wouldn't shoot. So before we loaded those up and fired them, we did a couple down and backs it's a really long, skinny lake. And then that shot was like the last shot of the day. I had, a bunch of batteries left over and thought that would be a cool shot, and it turned out really well. So
Cool.
But yeah, I was worried about getting wet, following the skier with the big rooster tail of water coming out. They wanted me to get lower and closer, and I'm like, man, if I do that, I'm going to be in the water. So
Excellent.
yeah. What about you, Jeff? What kind of flying you been doing?
Well, I actually did a video for a winery, a local winery here, and that's my first kind of attempt at doing something for somebody else instead of for me. And it was an interesting process. So because of that, I want to explore the idea of the Part 107 certification, because it'll be kind of interesting to do it for a lot of the wineries out here, and get involved in doing that. So I'm really looking forward to today's show about the certification process. But doing the winery thing, it was creative. It was fun. The guy really liked it. So it came out, I think, well. But I'm getting better at it. I'm learning to take a lot more shots than I ever needed, because I did the first kind of shoot and I did everything, and then he goes, well, I'm looking for this shot away from the vineyard. I go, I didn't take that shot. So I'm learning to find out, really quiz the person first, and find out what their needs are and really understand it, and then just kind of overshoot, and then hopefully there's a 20-second shot or 30-second shot of what they really, another thing they wanted. So I didn't have to go back and do it again. Right. So that was something I learned, but it was fun. Totally dug it.
One thing that helps is if you can, do you have the Android tablet for the Mavic?
Yeah, I have the NVIDIA, and I have an iPhone that I can use.
Okay. Yeah. So the Shield, right? That's the one you have. I think that you can mirror a screen out to like a monitor, right? Yep. I know it's like another cable or whatever, but if you had like a little TV or monitor that the person who you're shooting for can watch while you're doing it, I find that helps a lot of times for them to be like, oh, well, can you actually get lower, or, go faster on this part, or, I want it framed this way, not that way. And that helps a lot as you're shooting.
That's a very good idea.
What they want. Yeah. So, and it's easy with the Inspire, because I've got 2 remotes and 2 iPads. So I just disable the controls on the second one and let the person hold it if I don't have a second operator. So.
That's a great idea. Of course, I'll have to find a battery operated TV.
Oh man, I can send you a link. Dwayne probably can too. Sometimes they go on sale for like $60-$70. They'll have built-in receivers. They're for like FPV stuff, but I mean, just for a little handheld light, something to carry around, one of those would be great.
Yeah, most definitely.
The other interesting thing is, I know the Inspire, one of the best features about that is the fact that you can have a second operator. And in the latest firmware updates for the Mavic, and I'm not sure how it works, haven't read up on it, and maybe one of you two have read about this feature, but you can now use dual controllers on the Mavic.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So I assume that means a full second, Mavic controller. And I assume, this assumption, is that it allows the second person to then have camera control, for at least, tilt, right? And limited pan and what have you. The Inspire, you can go, full 360.
Yeah.
So they can really control it. But, it would be interesting to find out more about this feature. But, one of the latest firmwares was dual control.
Interesting.
Well, I would hope that they did it similar to, I hate to say this, but the Karma, because the Karma allows your smartphone to be the second controller to look at it and change the view and stuff like that. Instead of getting a whole different controller, it'd be great to have, just another device just for that, feature. Hopefully they did something like that.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that a little bit more, maybe for next show.
Yeah, that would make more sense than buying a whole nother controller, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Everybody has a phone, right? So. load the
Exactly.
DJI Go app on it. And, yeah.
Cool.
So before we get into the main topic, I just wanted to, since we're all talking about mobile, going off and doing shoots and stuff, right? I thought maybe we would jump down quickly to the accessory. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up, hopefully. And the notes I wrote here was, so I bought the Flymore package, and in the Flymore package came with the DJI car charger adapter for your batteries. Right. And what everybody has complained about, and I've experienced this myself, is that sadly that charger. Let me try and type and talk at the same time here. That charger only works down to 13 volts. And for anybody that knows, a little bit about electronics or about cars, your car battery at normal rest state, not in your car and charging, it sits around 12 volts, 12 and a half volts at most. So basically what that means is that the DJI car charger will not charge your Mavic battery unless that engine is running. And there was actually a thread on Mavic Pilots where someone has the Chevy Volt car, and because of the makeup, that's a hybrid car, and because of the makeup of that, the 12-volt cigarette lighter outputs actually never put out more than 12 volts, even when the engine's running. So he can't even use the accessory with the engine running.
Oh,
so let
man.
me just do a quick switch over. Let's see here. We'll post, screen share, application window. So here we go. So now what you'll see is this is an Amazon page, right? And so basically what we're looking at here is this type of charger, right? There's tons of third parties that sell this under 15 million different names. If you pop in DJI Mavic car charger and you get an image like this, you're probably pretty safe. And so this is the exact one that I bought, and this will work down to 12 volts. And sadly, my little Chevy Cruze, I was chasing a friend with my Mavic, and I popped that battery out, popped another one in, and I said, let me give it a try, because that was actually the morning of the wedding, and I wanted to make sure it was going to work. And so I plugged it in, and darn tootin', it started charging the battery, no engine running, everything's great. You can lock up the car if you felt you needed to do that. And then I came back to it being 3/4 charged, and my engine wouldn't start. So I need a new battery in the Chevy Cruze. That's what I learned from that. Thank goodness he only lived 5 minutes from there, and he ran home and got the jumper cable, so I didn't miss the wedding, right?
Too bad. What you could have done is hook up the Mavic battery into your cigarette lighter and started your car.
Well, actually, that crossed my mind.
So I've actually done that before. When I was at that CFL FPV meet last month, my car battery was dead when I went to leave on the last day, and the guy that was camping next to me had an adapter that would clip on your car battery, and you plug two 4S batteries in parallel, and that jumped it. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. I've seen the car start ones that you actually just plug into your cigarette lighter and it'll start the car.
Those are LiPos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they put out enough juice and amperage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, so for those who do a lot of traveling, want to keep your batteries topped off, and I use that. We actually took the other car because I knew I was not good with the Cruze, so took our Traverse, and I plugged that into the back. It's got a lighter in the back, and was topping off the batteries as I was flying them, and never, you get 3 with the Flymore, right? 1 in it and plus 2 extras, and that took me all day, no problem. So.
Have any of you got the critical battery indicator come on, saying that the battery, something wrong with the battery?
Because of how low the voltage is.
Well, yeah, something was, and then I recharged it and it worked, but it was when you hit the button and it says, okay, it has like 3 lights on it, So I
Yeah.
put it in and then fired up the DJI app, and all of a sudden, where you're usually okay to fly, green to go, or whatever, it had critical battery something. I forgot what it was.
Do you remember what the percentage was of the battery?
Oh, I think it was like 54% or something like that.
Okay.
But then I took it out and put another one in, and then I came home and recharged them all up again. It went away, but it was very weird. Anyways,
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
sidebar.
I know. Well, with the Inspire batteries, the old firmware, if you would let the battery self-discharge and down to 60% or whatever, or if you flew it to like 70%, there was like some certain value. If you flew it to that and then you left it sit for a while, not even a while, a couple days, you put it back in, you would be flying and you would take off, it would say 60%, and all of a sudden it would drop to like 20% and start to land on its own. So I don't know if there's any correlation between that, but that's definitely something to look into. I was thinking about that today, actually, because I haven't flown the Mavic in, I don't know, 2 weeks, and the batteries have all self-discharged, which I don't like doing, but I just haven't had time to fly it down. So I was like, man, I wonder what would happen if I put one of those in right now and flew it. Would I get some kind of error, because I didn't take it down, or I don't know. It'd be interesting to look into.
Yeah, mine have self-discharged, and I top them off if I go flying. I haven't seen any issues yet. So was yours 100%, Jeff, or before you took off, was it possibly in that self-discharge state?
I don't think it was, because I've been flying for up to that point. I was flying a lot, so I don't know what the deal was, and it was just the one battery, and I charge them all at the same time. So I get them all charged up, and although this one was not fully charged because I used it the day before, and I think it was I used it for 10 minutes or something, so it had to be some time left on it. Anyways, it was just I'll see what happens again.
Go in the battery history and look at the battery history and see if there's any messages in there, because that might give you a clue.
But let's switch over to part 107, because that's I want to
the hot topic.
It is the hot topic, because I want to be legal going forward.
Well, and so that goes into the first question, or the first topic is why would you want it? According to the FAA, if you come to my house and you shoot my backyard or whatever, and you say, yeah, I'd just like to come over and do it, and I say, oh, you did a great job, here's a tip, here's $1. As soon as I give any money changes hand, that's a commercial flight. And it doesn't have to be something that you just shot. Let's say you come to me and say, hey, I want to buy your footage from 2 years ago, and I say, okay, and you give me $1, then that flight now has become a commercial flight. So another reason too is for people that do the FPV racing. Technically, if they're racing for money, that's commercial, and a lot of those guys are starting to get their Part 107s because they want to make basically CYA. So if you just want to do it for fun, you want to fly for fun, you want to make cool videos and give them to people, and they don't pay you, then that's fine. One benefit of having the Part 107 is you can fly in places that you can't recreationally. So I think the recreational rule is 5 miles from a towered airport, but with Part 107, if you know how to read the aeronautical charts, you can actually get closer to airports as long as you're inside of their whatever class airspace it is, whether it's Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, or Golf. Golf's what you want to be in, Class G. So where to start? How do you get it? What's the first step? I don't know if you want to tackle this one, Dwayne, but because you have your pilot's license, right?
Yeah, I do. So just going off, we've got a couple questions here we're going to run down through. So on this particular one, what's it cost? There's actually 2 different ways to get it. If you are a private pilot and your pilot certificate license is current, which means that you've done the flights required every 2 years to show that you're proficient at flying. And we won't go into heavy detail there, but basically it just means that you've done what you need to show that you're a proficient pilot. So you remain current in the eyes of the FAA. Then you maintain your pilot's license. Just like, and we'll touch on this right now with the Part 107. Once you are a Part 107 pilot, and you are a pilot at that point of a what we call UAS, unmanned aerial system, so nobody is on board, as opposed to a private pilot license where you are the pilot on board the actual aircraft. You'll never lose that license unless you do something for the, that's going to cause the FAA to revoke your license. But there is what we call currency, and so you have to do a certain amount of X, Y, and Z to stay current. So if you're a current private pilot, it costs you zero. It costs you nothing to actually get your Part 107 license.
Joe,
But
question,
you
Jeff?
still have to take.
But you have to go to the FAA online course and take
Yes.
the UAS
You have to take the
online
Absolutely.
and pass that.
But that's free, right?
That's free,
So-
completely
So
free.
if you go and take that, you get that certificate. It's a certificate you print out online. You go to your local flight instruction school, get a flight instructor. There you go. That's it there. You go to your local flight instruction school, show that certificate. You show them your currency in your logbook. So a pilot has a logbook. And they say, okay, yep, everything matches up. And they basically sign off in your logbook saying, yes, you are now also a Part 107 pilot. And, just to give you an idea of what you get here, I'll try and cover up my numbers. It doesn't really matter. But so this here is a private pilot's license, right? It's got Orville and Wilbur on the back. And then this, you get this beautiful piece of plastic here. This is, you can see over here, UAS, so Unmanned Aerial Systems pilot's license. And guess what? There's no Orville and Wilbur on the back. Thought that was kind of unique, but
That's funny. I didn't realize that.
I realized it the other night, actually, when I was at our RC club and I was giving a little speech about this. But yeah, so you get a real pilot's license for UAS, right? Piece of plastic, and you're FAA registered, so it's all official. So the second way, so I'm actually not a current pilot. So this plastic, although I never lose it, and I never lose the ability to be a private pilot, I'm not a current private pilot, which means I have to go do X, Y, and Z, get signed off in my logbook, and then this becomes quote unquote current again, and then I can go fly by myself in a real airplane. So what did I have to do? So that's the second scenario. Either you're not a private pilot, or you're a private pilot that's not current. You go and basically sign up on, and I guess we won't necessarily have links to this, but if you go to the FAA's .gov's website, you'll see this. You go up to this particular system and you sign up to apply for the UAS private pilot's system or license. There's a system called CATS, C-A-T-S, Computer Aided Test Center or something system. And you pick a location to take the test. 99% of those places are actually going to be at a flight school. So at a little private pilot or private airport. And then they have computers there and it's all orchestrated, right? So you pay $150 for that test. And so then you go sit for the test and so on and so forth. So that's the second way. So you pay, if you're a current pilot, it's free. You got to take that online course, get the certificate, all that good stuff like we discussed. And then the second way, if you're not current or you're not even a pilot yet, you pay the $150 to the online sign up, the CAT system, and then go and sit for your test.
Yeah. And that just so everyone knows, the test is called a knowledge test, and basically, and some colleges, local colleges, have that as well. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, if you go to the FAA website, you can find the list of all the testing centers.
Yeah, CATs.
So I'm not a full-scale pilot, and I entertained that idea for a while. Like, okay, maybe I'll go get my actual full-scale pilot's license, which I would love to do. But I was looking at a minimum of 10 grand around here, and probably more realistically in the neighborhood of 15 grand. So, it was a big investment. With the new rules that came out, when was that? August that the Part 107 came out. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I kind of dragged my feet. I wasn't really sure what was involved, but around the end of November, I was like, man, it's almost 2017. I'm going to get this before the year is over. So I started looking into it more, and there's a lot of different places online that offer, pay $350 and we'll, you take this course and we'll prepare you for the knowledge test. And I really liked that idea. But there was one that was only $99, and I thought it wouldn't be, if it sucks, okay, I'm only out $99. And it was remotepilot101.com. And I can't say enough about that website. I highly, highly recommend it. All the learning is video based, and once you buy those videos, those classes, you have a lifetime membership to it, and they update the videos a lot. Have you heard of that one, Jeff?
Yeah, it's $149 now, so you save $50.
Yeah. Well, they said it was going to go up, but I still get emails every now and then from them, like updated videos, like bringing you latest news on FAA policy changes and things like that. But so I went through that. It only took me about 2 weeks to go through all the videos. I watched, I don't know, about 40% of them 2 times through, and the guy, his name is Jason Shapert, I think, or Shapert. He'll say, now you're going to want to watch this video twice. And, I'll flag that one and I'll mark it twice. And I had a little notebook that I kept. Every single video I would take notes, whether I tried to be a really good note taker. And after the 2 weeks of watching that, and they give you practice tests along the way, I called the local airport up, scheduled a test through CATS, and went and took the test in an hour. I think I got a 93, and it wasn't easy. It actually was harder than I thought, and I was glad I got a 93. But I was thinking, like, oh man, I hope I do good. But you only need a 70 to pass.
Yeah.
And I knew I could get more than a 70. But I will say that a lot of the airspace stuff I didn't know about. I could not read a sectional chart at all. I didn't know what METARs were, or TAFs are, or all that. And that is, I guess, so that was one of our questions on here is, what do I need to know and learn? And a huge part of it is being able to read the airspace charts. There's a really good website called skyvector.com that has all the charts for the United States. And it's a good place to know what's going on currently. So like where I live, we have that big orange fella that comes around now, that's our president. And there's a 30 nautical mile temporary flight restriction.
Yep. Anytime
he comes to Palm Beach, and I'm 29 miles away. So I'm inside of that circle. But that's something you want to be aware of, because, you'll go to jail. You'll pay a $150,000 fine on top of going to jail if you break some of those TFRs. So you really want to know the airspace and know, you might not know that there's a small grass strip runway 2 miles away that hardly ever gets any traffic, but you want to know that it's there and know who to contact if you do have to fly in the area. And the weather is a big thing, and there's a ton of material that you have to know that has absolutely nothing to do with UAVs and drones. I mean, but Remote Pilot 101's whole thing is, we're gonna make you pass this test. We're gonna give you everything you need to know that's going to be on there to pass the test, and I think they do a really good job of that. And I had a question one time, just chatted with the lady like right then. It was instant help. The customer service was really good. So
yeah. So, and I agree. There's some of that stuff that you may not think you need to know, and there's definitely some that you don't need to know. But even as important as weather is, looking at, sadly, by now I would have thought they would have upgraded the whole entire weather reporting system and gotten rid of METARs, or at least made them more readable. But it's been like that since 1802, and I guess I'm not going to change them. But what does it tell you? And a TAF, it tells you, it gives you the forecast of what's coming up, right? And when you know how to read that, certainly you can. There's some apps and stuff that makes it more readable. But you know what it's pulling from? It's pulling from those sources. And so if you can read those, then upcoming, the wind's going to pick up. Maybe, we'll go a little earlier or something before we do the flight.
And there is this, it's called the Remote Pilot Small Unmanned Aircraft System Study Guide. It's a PDF file. It's 87 pages long. So I'm sure you could study that, but you wouldn't know what the heck you're doing, right?
So that was one of the resources I used. And then there's another, I forget what it's called, but it basically has a key to what everything is on the aeronautical charts. And they actually give you that during the test. I had one of those books with me. I guess, so when I went into that too, I had to leave my phone with the testing lady. I can't remember if I had to take everything out of my pockets or if I just did because I don't like things in my pockets when I'm sitting down in the chair for a while.
But you're allowed to have the manual with you, right?
What's that?
You're allowed to bring manuals.
No, you couldn't. I couldn't bring anything. They provided. So there was a computer, and she goes through and tells you what you can and can't do. I think you were allowed to use the calculator function on there, and there was a book that I could use, and it was one of those, not the manual of the study guide, but I forget what it's called. It's like the aeronautical sectional chart guide or whatever. You could have those, and there's example figures in there, and in the test on the computer, it would say, okay, in figure 26A, how far away is X from B or whatever, and then you could go look in that book for the figure and figure it out. So, or hope that you're able to figure it out.
Now, one hint, when you're looking at the sectional charts, if you actually flip to that front of that book, there's actually a legend for all the sectional charts. I didn't realize that until the end of the test, because I'm like flipping through for a couple of different things. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a legend right here.
Yeah. So how much studying did you have to do, Dwayne, with your background in full scale?
So I took the FAA offers free courses, which I was already aware of anyhow because of my private pilot's license. So I actually went and took one of those for Part 107, and I tell you, they did not make it clear that you needed to know the ground course work, what we would call ground course work or ground school. So I didn't brush up on that, and it's been, heck, 15 years since I actually got my private, 20 years or whatever. So I wasn't fresh on that. I took the same test that Jeff took, the FAA Online Part 107 practice test, or it wasn't even practice. It was a real test. That's actually not required if you're, if you're not already a pilot. So you can take that, get the certificate, and that helps. But the majority of the questions, as I'm sure you found out, are actually not Part 107 questions. It's kind of weird. They were mainly the ground school questions, and because I had not brushed up on that, I passed first time, but I didn't do quite as good as you. And that's only because I more or less know.
Yeah, and it really seemed like it was geared towards, people that had prior knowledge. You know, I thought before, like, oh man, I could just go take it and probably get better than a 70, but I'll tell you, I couldn't have. I mean, I didn't know before taking that class and using those study guides. I
Yeah.
knew next to nothing. You know, I thought, oh yeah, I'll go take it. It's going to be about drones. I know a shitload about drones, but
Right.
okay, turns out it's not really about UAVs. So
Yeah, you know, I've been
airspace, weather, and
yeah,
yeah.
I've been pattern matching the study guide to test questions so I could kind of figure out what that was, you know, but I think you're right that remote pilot 101 thing is going to probably be the savior to me so I can move forward. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't heard one negative review of them. The videos are easy to watch. The guy's well spoken, and it's, you know, like I said, it only took me a couple weeks to go through all of them, watching multiple ones multiple times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I guess one of the key things, right, is if you don't pass, guess what? You have to pay another $150. Go sit for the test again.
Yeah.
So
I think you have to wait a week or two before you can take it again.
Yeah, there's at least some period.
So Dustin, did you get a plastic card as well?
Yeah, I got the same one. It only took them 4 months to send it to me, but
yeah, exactly.
But they give you a temporary certificate right then and there, right?
Yes, you can print. Well, I think so.
No, so
I found out then that I passed, but then you have to go in and create an IACRA account. I think it's iacra.gov, iacra.gov. You have to go in there, create an account, put in your test number maybe, or your student. So you've got to put in some information in there, and that takes, I think, 24 to 48 hours to validate. And once it's validated in their system, then you can print out the temporary certificate. Okay. And then, once you have a temporary certificate, you're legal to start doing operating under Part 107.
Wow.
Another thing just to touch on real quick is the waiver process. Say you wanted to fly inside Class E airspace, or you wanted to fly at night or beyond visual line of sight or over people, or any one of those restrictions that you're not allowed to do. On the FAA website, there's a spot to apply for a waiver. You go through and you fill out all these boxes and all these fields, and that will give you the opportunity to say, hey, look, I can do this safely at night. You know, I'm going to be out in the middle of nowhere. It's going to be under 100 feet. I'll be able to see the lights on the whole time, or whatever it is. They may say, okay, yes, you can do it from this time to this time. The tricky part is it might take them 90 days to okay it. So I had a instance where a lady that I work for sometimes, who's a realtor, she wanted me to shoot a house that was inside of our local airspace here, and the controlled airspace. And so I applied for a waiver, and that's another good thing about Remote Pilot is there's one whole 15-minute video where they go through and run you through everything you need to know about applying for a waiver and what the FAA is looking at when they approve or deny these. So I put in there that I wanted to do it 3 weeks from now. I mean, really, I wanted to do it that day or the next day. But I put 3 weeks thinking, okay, I've heard of some being turned around as fast as 2 weeks. Maybe I'll get lucky and they'll say, okay. But I got an email about a week later saying that I didn't provide them ample time to review the waiver request, so my request was denied. So I'm thinking, okay, well, you took the time to read it and deny it. Why couldn't you approve it? I mean, I don't know.
But could you have contacted the control tower to get approval?
Yeah, I did. So I made some calls, and a guy that works at the airport, he gave me the actual air traffic control number, and he's like, I'll give it to you as long as you don't save it and burn it when you're done. And I was like, okay, but of course I still have it saved in my phone. And I called air traffic control, and I talked to the guy. He was super nice, super helpful, but he said that his hands are tied. If he doesn't receive an official email from the FAA for the waiver, that he can't let me do it. And he understood that, I'm barely inside of the border. I'm not in the path of any approach or takeoff. You know,
Plus
I
you're-
wasn't in the same
It's gonna be
bearing
under-
as
it's gonna be
the
under,
runways.
like, yeah.
And I don't need to go higher than 100, 150 feet. But he's like, I legally I can't. And I know a guy who's a full-scale pilot. He was in the military. He flies. He volunteers for the local law enforcement. Flies helicopters for him. But he also has his Part 107. He just got it for the hell of it. He doesn't even know how to fly a drone, but he's got it, and he's interested in drones. But he said, and other pilots I've talked to, their sentiment is just do it. You're not going to get caught. Just do it. So I'm thinking like, yeah, but you know, this lady I know who I'm friends with, she's only going to give me $100 for this small little shoot. Do I really want to risk losing my remote pilot license for that? You know, no. I like to play by the rules for the most part.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And you never know, right? You never know.
Yeah.
So
You never know. The neighbor of whose house you're shooting could be the air traffic controller's house.
Yeah. Hey, you know.
all right, gentlemen. So what do you think? Any more questions about Part 107 since I'm the only one that doesn't have it?
So I guess one of the other questions, and this is kind of, unless you know different, Dustin, left a little bit open yet, and this came right from the FAA, you know, my local, what we call the FISDO, and their training was, you know, currency. What's it take? What is the currency for the UAS pilot's license? And that is 2 years. So once you get it, it's good for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's that X, Y, and Z that they don't currently have defined. And they technically have 2 years from the date they, you know, instated it before they have to really make up their mind, because that's when the first person is going to have to renew it, right? If they got it on the day that the law went into effect. So
My guess is it'll be something online, you know, because there's no way.
well, and yeah, so he drew the conclusion that it's either going to be, you know, the worst case is we have to go back and take the test again, right? The best case is they will have some type of online refresher course that you can go and take, and then you basically get an automatic renewal through the FAA systems, you know, without going back to a flight school or something like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully less than $150.
Well, hopefully for free, right?
Yeah.
It's just
I
a
would
refresh,
imagine.
and then you prove that you did it.
Yeah,
I
'cause
doubt it'll be free though.
They don't want to make it too onerous because they want people to go through and get recertified, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and then why would they even bother doing this thing online, right?
Right.
It doesn't make sense if you have to go to it just doesn't make sense. So, yeah.
Government.
Yeah, a few people have said that, you know, even as a UAS pilot, you should probably keep a pilot's logbook, similar to what we do for private pilots, which is you record every flight, basically, you know, the length of the flight and where you did that flight, what have you.
But the app does that for you.
And it does, actually.
You need to have,
which is good.
I've heard you need to have a written one. I don't think it's official that you have to have a written one, but I think that that's a lot better.
Well, you think the app is better because it actually, you can open up the route that you took, you know, and actually can replay it.
Yeah, and a lot of people use third-party apps that don't have that, like Drone Deploy. It doesn't record that. I don't know if Leachy does or not, but the Maps Made Easy one doesn't. So, you know, if you're somebody that does a lot of mapping, you know, and not using the DJI Go app, you might have 90% of your flights not logged in there. I had this, my wife got this for me for Christmas 2 years ago, I guess. Oh, my camera's over here. Field Notes, it makes a UAV logbook, and it's pretty nice because it's got a spot for everything in here. Date, mission, airframe, location, control frequency, camera frequency, flight time, start and finish, weather, wind speed, batteries, notes, concerns, issues, altitudes, flight duration, commercial, recreational, and then it even gives you a pre-flight, a flight, and a post-flight checklist, which I use. It's pretty good. But you know, this is only a 48-page flight log, and it came with 3 books. And you know, this is my 3rd set now of these, I think, already. So that's the one downside, is you can't. They're not too expensive. I think it's like $10 for the pack of 3, something like that. But
yeah, but you know, something like that could there's lots of different ways, right? So you can build a spreadsheet that you open up on your phone, you know, and just fill it in.
Yeah. The key part is, I think, keeping track of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah. So I mean, if that becomes part of the currency to show that you've done so much flying, right, in a given period of time, you know, it can't hurt to just make sure you're recording that. You know, if you're mainly using the DJI Go 4 app, right, you got that.
Right.
But at some point, you need to probably think about transferring that into a more permanent record. You know.
Well, it's actually saved in the cloud at your account. So, which is either good
Chinese
or bad.
cloud.
I don't know.
Yeah, Chinese cloud, exactly.
Chinese cloud.
And if we upset them.
Yeah, you don't want to talk. You don't want to talk about their bad customer service, because you might have to use it.
Yeah,
I did okay with it. My poor Osmo died at the. I went to that RC show, and it died like 3/4 of the way through the day, and I had to send it back in. And
wow,
the customer service wasn't as bad as what everybody makes it out to be. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Was that the Toledo show that you went to?
No, I didn't go to Toledo. That would have been cool. No, the one up in New York, or North Jersey. The AMA Expo East, as they called it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So their customer service wasn't actually, interestingly, you fill out the form and you fill out what you're sending back, right? So if you had to send your Mavic in, and we could talk about that afterwards, about your Mavic. Like to hear how that's going. But yeah, so on the Osmo, I pulled off the phone holder and the mic and, you know, all the different accessories. I sent back the handle and the camera, right? A nice little box, and that's what I checked, right? And what did I get back in the mail? An absolutely complete commercial box replacement. I mean, it was off the shelf, so, you know, at the center there where they repair them, all shrink wrapped, everything. It was a new SD card, the whole 9 yards, as if I just bought it. So
wow.
They don't repair these things. They just send you a replacement. And
yeah, well, it's good for you though.
It took them a while to get to that point, a little bit, but I got it in time for the wedding, so I didn't care. You know,
cool.
They got a lot going on with some Mavics going back, I hear.
Yeah. Well, hey, gentlemen, I'm going to have to wrap this up on my part, because I have to have dinner.
Yeah, you out there in California, yeah.
At California time, PST.
Right.
You know, they do say this is the best coast, not the West Coast. So
what? You know, maybe. I've been there. Not Napa. I like to go to Napa. That'd be good.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
Maybe sometime.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, guys.
Very good.
Let's sign off here, and then hold on. Let me stop this broadcast.